Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Alright, already the show goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on.
Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through they teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on they desk, unaffected by...
We are live here discussing the Cincinnati Bengals 2024 NFL Draft. Guys, it was one hell of a draft. I'm Daniel Alameda. Malik, Wright, will be joining me in a second, guys. But if you guys are watching this, first thing, as always, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe for our full content on the Sit Down YouTube channel, as well as the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. A little recap of yesterday. If you guys didn't see, we were live in the new studio for the First Star Logistics second annual draft live stream, and it was one hell of a time. We had food, we had a bunch of good time. I mean, we had Dave Lapham, we had Joe Goodberry. It was a great time. So if you guys are watching this, we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. And we're just going to start it off rolling with, some of these picks. Marissa, if you can, start off on Amarius Mims. Just going to run through some of these. And like I said, guys, this was, in my opinion, I think it was a great draft. And we'll get to the grades. We'll get to our full analysis. But at the end of the day, we ended this draft with potential. We ended this draft, how I look at it, I think we got at least 4 to 5 future starters at some point. And if we started off Amarius Mims, the way I look at Amarius is it was the obvious pick, right? You could talk about a guy like Jared Verse. You could talk about a guy like Jerzon Noon, but Jerzon Noon clearly fell to round 2. Amarius Mims was a guy where it's the potential base. The dude is 6'7". You're learning behind Trent Brown. You're learning behind Orlando Brown Jr. And the way I view it is it's a very solid pick for the future. So I'm excited about the Amarius Mims selection and just keeping it rolling. We got Chris Jenkins, round 2. In my opinion, I think it was a very solid pick. I think it fit a need for them. And he was the best defense tackle on the board that fit the need for a run-stopping defense tackle besides B.J. Hill and besides Sheldon Rankins. But for me, I still think there was some other talent. So that's why if I were to give this pick a grade, I would definitely give it more of like a B. I don't think I'm not totally in love with Chris Jenkins' pick. I think it's a solid pick. I think he's got potential to build on the pass rush as well as, he's a very good run stopper. And that's definitely how I view a guy like Chris Jenkins. So going to round 3, this was one of my favorite picks, Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton was one of my favorite selections, and we see you guys in the comments. Once again, if you guys are watching this, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe for more content. But Jermaine Burton is going to be the turning point for a lot of Bengals fans, I truly feel like, right? You got Troy Franklin was on the board. You got Jalen McMillan was still on the board. You got a lot of these other receivers were still on the board. But at the end of the day, how I view Jermaine Burton, he's given me what I want, and that's consistency. First off, the dude has 0 drops in college. 0. He's got amazing hands, and he's got the versatility to play inside and outside. So Jermaine Burton, hands down, was one of my favorite selections. And I see a lot of people giving Jermaine Burton flack, saying he's not super athletic. He's not super this, his character concerns. At the end of the day, guys, what do we want, right? He is going to step in day 1 and be the Bengals wide receiver number 3. He's going to step in day 1 and be better than some teams' wide receiver number 2. And like I said, he can do it all, right? You can ask him to run screens. You can ask him to, go play the deep game because that's what he did at Alabama. He was mainly, a deep route wide receiver. But I loved his versatility and I loved his quickness in and out of breaks. Jermaine Burton, hands down, was a guy that I absolutely loved. So keeping it going, just looking at some more of these picks that I'm a huge fan of. Eric All. Eric All is one of my favorite selections. And just we'll bunch them together, both him and Tanner McLachlan. Eric All is the question marks to the injuries, right? He had spinal surgery, and then this past year he tore his ACL. But when you just turn on the tape, guys, I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan of Eric All. He can do it all as a tight end. You're getting a guy. He's not like I'm gonna be real, guys. Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott, a lot of these other tight ends. I don't think that they're better prospects than Eric All. The main concern with him is health, and I understand that. And that's something where he could be injury prone. He might not be, able to make the Bengals roster, day one fully healthy. But when you turn on his tape and when you look at the potential you're getting on day 3, I think he's a potential starting tight end. He's got the size. He's 6'4", 6'5", and when I saw his tape, hands down, my favorite part was his quickness in and out of breaks, his ability to, go up and high point the ball. He was beating slot cornerbacks. He was beating linebackers, and it's a simple wiggle at the top of his route, and he's got some good juice after the catch. So Eric All was a guy I loved. Tanner McLachlan, looking at the other tight end, he was, he's 25 years old, 24, 25, so he's definitely older. But when you look at him, 6'5", one of the most productive college tight ends out of the University of Arizona. And when you look at, how productive he was on the offense, he was the number 2 weapon for them outside of wide receiver Jacob Cowing. And Jacob Cowing was the 4th round selection. So Tanner McLachlan was definitely one of my favorite. I think the combo of him and Eric All are definitely something to be excited about. And then just going through real quick, Matt Lee, round 7. It fits a need, right? You have no backup center currently on the roster. Matt Lee was a 3-year starter for Miami. He started every single game at center. I believe he was a captain. Matt Lee was definitely a very, very good selection, especially at the round 7, guys. Round 7, you're not going to get an elite talent. So he fits a need and he's got potential. And then just keeping it going, Cedric Johnson, one of my favorite selections. He may not be able to make the roster. There's obviously concerns whether it's Joseph Asai, do they love him? But he's a guy where I saw his film out of Ole Miss. He went up against J.C. Latham. He went up against the Alabama offensive tackles. He went up against LSU's, very good offensive line. He went up against Jaden Daniels. He played some great competition at Ole Miss, and he was productive. He's not the best run defender in the world. His size, 6'3", 260 pounds, but he's giving you serious juice in the pass rush. He is a very, very, I would say, raw prospect because he doesn't have great pass rush moves, but you're getting a mold in round 7 or in round 6 for something for you to work with. So I was definitely a huge fan of Cedric Johnson.
So I guess this is the point where I jump in, right?
Yeah.
Danny, I appreciate you for starting it, guys.
No,
I had to, grab some water and whatnot. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys do us a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel while you are here. Remember, every single time we go live from the Sit Down YouTube channel, we're also going live from the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to that. We appreciate you guys for joining us for the draft coverage yesterday as well. That was amazing. It was awesome. I was honored to be sitting with Brad Johansson, Dave Lapham, Joe Goodberry, Evan McPhillips, Daniel Logan, and Dave Burke. Everybody that was involved with the process of making this thing a success, we greatly appreciate you guys. And I hear you guys saying what's good, so what's good to you too. This was a good draft, okay? I know there are a lot of people out there that are probably not the happiest with how the draft turned out necessarily because you didn't get your guy, but outside of, them maybe grabbing another interior offensive lineman, I think the Bengals hit every potential need. Now, did you guys know Dwight McLachlan was my guy? Bengals didn't get him. Am I crying? Am I upset? No, I'm not. I'm looking at the positives. There's a lot of risk that was involved, but I think it's a lot of guys with high upside throughout this entire draft process. It's a lot of things to be excited about. It's a lot of things to look forward to. What I'm hoping for is I'm hoping to answer some of your questions throughout this stream, get a feel for what the fan base is feeling about this draft, and maybe explain the thought process behind each and every single draft pick the Bengals made, because I think there was a reasoning for everything. And I think, one of my favorite sayings in life is competition breeds success. And I think this is no different. Competition breeds success. And I think that the Bengals have certainly rounded out their roster with some competition. So before we jump into it, you remember back when we were in school, they used to say, all right, class, get up, shake everything out, make sure you're good, make sure you're ready to go, and sit back down so you can get ready. We're not going to quite do that, but what I want you guys to do for me, if you guys could do me a favor, drop down in the comment section your draft grades. While you're also doing that, drop down your questions in the comment section because we're going to get through all of them. Daniel, I know he was going through his picks that he liked, but we're going to go a little more in depth. I promised you guys something more in depth. So hopefully Daniel's not burnt out yet.
No.
But we're going to discuss these picks a little bit more in depth and how I see them fit. How I see them fitting in the Bengals roster this year. So drop your draft grades down for me. Drop your questions down for me. And let's get this show on the road. So let's start with the Amarius Mims pick, Daniel.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who are upset with the pick. I think people are starting to come around to it. But I guess the fall off between, Amarius Mims, who, people have had an issue with it, not because they're saying Amarius Mims is a bad player. And I think that's what's getting lost throughout this. There are people out there that are saying, it was a bad pick. It was whatever. Guys, we're saying this because, not we're saying this, but people are saying this because there's not enough film out there on him. And I think the thought behind the process behind it was, obviously you have the soft tissue injury. So you wonder, how does that play a factor? I think every single time you saw Amarius Mims on tape, which is just an 8-game sample size, you're pretty ecstatic. You're pretty ecstatic about what you saw because in that short span of what you did see, it did show elite potential. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to get Bengals fans to see the light on. And I think most people are starting to come around to it now, but I think it's important for us to dissect these picks and kind of go through the process. I think people are just down on the thought process because, hey, we want to see more of them. You wish you could just turn on, look up Amarius Mims on YouTube and you could see just mountains of highlights over and over and over and over again. The plus size thing about this, guys, is he has the size. The word I hate the most, if you guys have been following me for quite some time, is intangibles. But Amarius Mims has what you're looking for in terms of the intangibles. The short amount of film that we do have on him, he dominated the competition at a high level. The biggest thing that I think I love about the Amarius Mims pick, guys, Marissa, Daniel, team, everybody in the chat, was I think that he couldn't have landed in a better situation. I mean, you mean to tell me you're pairing him up with guys who his style truly resembles? Guys like Orlando Brown Jr., guys like Trent Brown. And those are the guys he has to go off of and learn from. It's a great situation if you ask me, man. I think Amarius Mims landed in a great situation. And if he's going to be something anywhere, it's going to be in Cincinnati. And I think any team that would have drafted him would have probably had the same concerns because of the lack. But I do agree. And I love what Adam Bullock, I appreciate you, Adam. You're always in the chat. He says he wouldn't have been there if we had all the film, that film. And I agree with him. I think Amarius Mims, there were some circles that were saying he would have been a top 10 pick. Mm-hmm. That's how highly this guy was viewed amongst league circles. But the cool thing is we got a true right tackle. We got a guy that we are like, oh, this is our right tackle of the future. We obviously have Orlando Brown here for the future. Trent Brown is here for right now. I love the pick for those reasons. I've come around to understand the Bengals' thought process. And I'm honest with you guys. Had you not taken him there, let's say you did go a Jared Verse or whoever, the next best guy. Maybe you guys wanted Bengals to draft Johnny Newton. Like I wanted the Bengals to draft Jerzon Newton, but the drop off from that would have been so massive if you think about it. So those are my thoughts on the Amarius Mims pick. Dan, you have anything else that you want to add on that? I feel like we should.
Definitely. Amarius Mims, when we have this conversation, you have to ask yourself, this is what I, slept on and boiled it down to. What's the alternative, right? Let's actually talk about that. What's the alternative? Graham Barton was on the board. Troy Fautanu was on the board. In my opinion, Amarius Mims, if you're looking at a strictly tackle, Amarius Mims, by far and away, his potential is by far and away better than theirs. His tape was by far and away better than theirs. You look at Troy Fautanu, very agile, great footwork, but he wasn't a physically imposing offensive tackle. He's more of a smaller tackle, 6'4", 6'5". So with him, if you pick him, you're discussing, all right, he can maybe start on the interior, but when you project him to be your starting right tackle of the future, there's a little more question marks. And Graham Barton, the same thing. He played some center. I just he was productive, but there was many times where he was getting, absolutely bullied, whether it's, his finesse moves as an edge rusher was, getting around and beat him to the inside with the counter move. Amarius Mims' tape showed you the potential. He could be one of the best offensive tackles. So for me, that rules out the rest of the offensive linemen. And then when you look at the defensive linemen, the real guy that you could have the conversation with, in my opinion, is Jared Verse. I think Jared Verse steps in day one with the Rams and is potentially the defensive rookie of the year. I think he can have that type of impact with them. And when you project him to the Bengals, I think he's a better prospect than Myles Murphy was. So I think he could step in and be your potential edge rusher to pair with Myles Murphy of the future. But the question you have to ask yourself is, it gets hairy with how you're going to play him this year. Jared Verse is pro ready right now. You got Trey Henderson, you got Sam Hubbard, you got Myles Murphy. So what are you going to do? And then with the Jerzon Newton, sure, you could have taken him. Yes, he was a great prospect. I think he was a seal of the draft for the Commanders. I think he's going to be extremely productive. But at pick number 18, we saw how the league viewed him. He fell 18 spots after that. So in my opinion, the Amarius Mims pick, the alternative was you trade back, but then you miss out on a potential tackle of the future like Mims, or you take Jared Verse and then you have a lot more question marks about how he's going to play. And then you got to wait to round 2 to say, hey, who's going to be our right tackle of the future? So in my opinion, I think this was a very solid pick. Right now, I give it a B+, A-, but at the end of the day, these grades don't mean anything until he steps foot. So potential star right tackle, Amarius Mims.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, man. I think you got to feel very, very good about that pick. The more you look at it and how the draft shaped up. Moving on, and hopefully we're getting producer Mercer. Hopefully we're getting the thumbnails up so people can follow along with what it is that we're what draft pick we're talking about. The next one I want to talk about is our second round pick, Chris Jenkins. Let's talk about Chris Jenkins. I love Chris Jenkins. I think that Chris Jenkins is I think Chris Jenkins was a good pick for the Bengals. And the reason why I feel like Chris Jenkins was a good pick for the Cincinnati Bengals is because I feel like he did not get to play to his full potential at the University of Michigan. I think a lot of the concerns people had about Aiden Hutchinson was, and I'm going to Aiden Hutchinson because I think I can make it connect. People had issues with Aiden Hutchinson saying, Aiden Hutchinson's a guy that was a great run stopper, right? But we haven't seen a lot of his ability to rush the passer necessarily. And then, obviously he went on to get picked by the Lions. He went on to show that he had the ability, the upside to rush the passer and could do it consistently. And I think this is a very similar thing here with a guy in Chris Jenkins. I think Chris Jenkins' best football is ahead of him. He comes from a football background. His dad was absolutely great, man. I think you got to feel very, very good about very, very good about the Chris Jenkins pick. I definitely think he has the run stopping ability, but I also think the pass rush ability. You see the pressure he does. He makes quarterbacks uncomfortable in the pocket. I love that pick, man. Yeah. And I love it because they didn't have to make any moves. They had everything come to them. And, as we go through this, stream and we discuss it and we talk a little bit more about it, I think a lot of people that were expecting the Bengals to, use those picks to maneuver and do certain things with those things. But I felt like they may have thought that they didn't need to, right? They probably thought that they didn't need to. They probably felt that they owed it to their roster to sort of replenish it and give more and get more out of the roster with these various picks to try to raise up competition, if you will, because you do have a lot of those guys that were drafted in the middle rounds that have not performed quite well. Mm-hmm. And, by holding on to those picks, do those guys sort of start to raise the level of play from the guys that are already in the building without, creating a level of complacency? And I think that's where my mind went. But I think Chris Jenkins is going to be wind up being a very, very good football player for the Bengals. When I watched Chris Jenkins' film, and I started watching him a couple weeks back, and I said, man, I think he could be a real shot for the Bengals, man. I will say that he is just disruptive. He is I think he has the potential to be a true game wrecker. I really believe that, man. And I think that the reason why you feel very, very good about a guy in Chris Jenkins is because you know that what this guy cares about, at least what his personality has exhibited, is he cares about ball. He wants to win. He wants to win at its highest level. And I feel very, very good about that pick because I think that he can help, sort of refine his pass rushing repertoire being under guys like BJ Hill or learning from guys like Sheldon Rankins. I think the best football is ahead of him, man. And you feel very, very good about the Chris Jenkins program, about Chris Jenkins, especially knowing he's coming from a program such as Michigan, where, most of the guys that are there, you see how many Michigan players have been drafted just recently, man. It just speaks to how the job that Harbaugh did and how he was preparing these guys for the highest level, man. But Daniel, what were your thoughts on for the Chris Jenkins pick?
So Chris Jenkins, he's going to he'll definitely grow on me. I think Chris Jenkins was a very fine pick. Let me just say this. The first thing, I'm confident in Lou Anarumo and Zach Taylor's reaction to this. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. They kept saying, we were staring at the board, waiting. If they are super confident that he was their guy and they were waiting, they were sweating for him to be the pick, then it gives me definitely a little more confidence because they've obviously watched, done their intensive research. And I think that's the number one thing I'm sure that definitely sold him is his character. He was a leader. I'm sure you guys have all seen the videos, extremely passionate. He was the leader of that Michigan defense. When I watched him, I think his floor is definitely what's selling me right now. His floor is a guy, he never got bullied, Malik. He never got bullied. And that's what's selling me, to be honest, is I'm not looking at a defensive tackle in 2 years and 3 years saying, oh, he was a bust because his college production was way better than what his NFL was. He was way stronger than the competition at college. He is one of the strongest players in this interior defensive line class. And I just don't see him getting bullied at the next level. I think my biggest fear for him is he doesn't make a true impact as a run stopper. I think he's a great run stopper, but that would be my fear. I think his floor is a very productive defensive tackle that just doesn't show you the flash in the pass rush and is just a fine player. And for me, that's what's definitely selling me, is saying, hey, this was Chris Jenkins. For everybody who's looking at the other picks, Eric all saying, oh, they're going for high potential. Amarius Mims, high potential. Chris Jenkins is the safe pick here. Yeah. And that's what's selling me. I think Chris Jenkins has potential in the pass rush.
We can go a little step further, though, Daniel. I think he's already shown the potential in the pass rush. Yeah. The issue was he got limited reps to do it consistently. Yeah. He's already shown that he can rush the passer. He's already shown that when he can hold his own, he can hold his ground, he can hold the point of attack, and he can make life difficult for opposing offenses. He's already shown that. Yeah. The issue was he just didn't get limited reps. Now in turn, you could also say he's fresh because he didn't really, rush the passer at a high clip at Michigan. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but I think all in all, you got to feel very good. And guys, we're not just trying to sell you on the pick. If it was a pick that I didn't like, I'm going to tell you. I feel like there's a reach, I'm going to tell you as well. All in all, I'm a fan of this. If you love a guy, go out and grab him. It doesn't matter what round it is necessarily, not unless you were. Just don't Drew sample the pick, right? Yep. Don't really overvalue a guy and draft him, uncharacteristically, because I think the T'Vondre Sweat theme is very similar to why it is if you like a guy, you draft him, because you never know what another team might be thinking. You never know what another team might be thinking. And I see somebody says the Cincinnati Wolverines. I laugh at that because man, listen, I mean, credit to Michigan, man. They're turning out a lot of guys, man, right now. They're turning out a lot of guys and they're getting the most out of these guys as well. So you got to feel very, very good about where the Bengals stand and how they're continuing to add to this roster on a consistent basis. But all in all, man, I love the Chris Jenkins pick for a lot of reasons. And I think that guy's gonna be very, very hard to keep off the field, man. His dad was a phenomenal player in the National Football League. I think he went to like 4 Pro Bowls, was a 4-time All-Pro. I mean, like, the guy was an absolute monster. So Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one last thing I'll say about this, Malik, is once again, you guys look at the ulterior, right? What is it? Michael Hall was taking a couple picks later. I'm a huge fan of Michael Hall. I think he landed in a much better situation for him where he has a Myles Garrett next to him and he's got a great defensive line. So I'm not too concerned about, looking at Michael Hall and saying, oh, the Bengals should have taken him instead. the one guy I would probably look at, say, damn, like this would have probably been a better pick is a Zach Frazier. And I think the Steelers had an amazing draft, and he would be the one guy. I know AD Mitchell was still there. We'll talk about Jermaine Burton in a second, but I think for the value, the only other guy I would have maybe considered is definitely a Zach Frazier. But as far as the defensive linemen go, Dwayne Carter went in round 3. I was fine with him going in round 3. Definitely Zach Frazier was the one where it's like, ooh, like went to the Steelers. If he was a Bengal, I would not have been mad about it. But at the end of the day, Lou Anarumo loves Chris Jenkins. Zach Taylor loves Chris Jenkins. I'm a fan of the pick. I think this is a very high floor pick. So that's how I view Chris Jenkins.
Yeah, man. I think that you feel very, very good about I think you feel very, very good about where Chris Jenkins has went with the Bengals, and I'm excited about his potential moving forward. Let's touch on my favorite one.
Yep.
And I probably should have, been a little bit more heady about this and had my clip already of my excitement in the new First Star Logistics studio yesterday. When this pick came through, but Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton's a guy that I've talked and raved about, and as I've said on social media, I've stood 10 toes down about. And I said, if the Bengals were able to grab this guy, man, then I said, man, I think that this guy could be really, really, really special. And I don't ever like to really like rub it in people's faces or like tell people, hey, I told you so, or you were wrong. But the amount of hate and heat that we got, I'll say that I got for standing on the table for Jermaine Burton was, man, was pretty interesting. And I know, I think a lot of people sometimes probably were thinking, I think some people were thinking, hey, he's got the off-field issues, got the so on and so forth. I think we need to be very, very careful when we say, I think we need to be very careful when we say people have off the field issues. I don't think Jermaine Burton's quote unquote off the field issues were as intense as it was made out to be, if you will.
Yep.
And I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. He did have the incident with the situation with the fan of him pushing. I don't know if it was necessarily a punch. I'm not going to really get into detail about that, but that guy is a game changer. Yep. That guy is a game changer. And that guy is a difference maker. And Nick, to your point, Nick Fott says, you got heat because you took him at 49, LOL. Again, if you're following that metric that I just said, right? When we did the State of the Jungle War Rooms, we were taking on the image as if we were the general managers. So what that means is we would do what it is that we felt like we needed to do. In every single draft that we've done for mock drafts, Jermaine Burton was not there, right? And that's from us doing things on screen versus not on screen. He was never there in the third round to be picked. And just like when we did our mock drafts, we didn't have 6 quarterbacks, going in the first round as well. So, of course, it messed up a lot of boards. So I think that, when I talk about it and why I drafted him in the 49ers, because I think that guy is a difference maker. So you have to ask yourself this. If Malik, who's an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, wasn't high on Chris Braswell, who's the Alabama edge, he didn't love Terry and Arnold, he didn't love J.C. Latham, but he loved Jermaine Burton. He loved him so much that he was willing to draft him with the 49th overall pick. Why was he? Right? It can't be because he's a homer, because if he was a homer, he would love all the picks. I did it because I think that guy's a difference maker, and my tune has never changed about him. I really believe that guy is a difference maker. And I think when people see it on the football field, Bengals fans are already excited about it just from his energy. That's the kind of guy that we are getting. We're getting a true competitor. There's guys who, obviously all football players want to win, but there's guys that want to win and they want to do it dominantly. That is literally what Jermaine Burton is. He wants to wipe out the competition. He's ultra competitive. And I think that ultra competitiveness sometimes gets mistaken for character flaws or character issues. Because if that's the case, there's a bunch of wide receivers in the National Football League with character issues, right? But does that stop you from wanting them? AJ Brown, you could say he has character issues. Des Bryant, you could say he had character issues. Devontae Adams, you could say he has character issues. Man, the list goes on. Jamar Chase, you could say has character issues. It's the guy that said he let the media know when he was pissed, when he felt like he needed more targets. He made it known. I don't have a problem with a player wanting to be competitive or a player wanting to be great or wanting to be involved. And I think that it sucked that he was in an offense in Alabama where the quarterback was just only willing to throw him balls on deep routes, essentially. He wasn't really able to show his full repertoire and what he's able to do. But Jermaine Burton's a guy that we saw do it at Georgia. We saw do it at Alabama. So we knew that he could do it in the SEC. It wasn't just one particular college offense that was making him. And the fact that you got him in, I think that you feel very, very good about the receiver room. And I think you feel very, very good about the receiver room for the long term. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
1,000%, Malik. I'm a fan of it. I think the question you guys have to ask yourself, I always do this exercise. All right, what is he going to do with the Bengals? Take out everything else. Take out inside-outside versatility. How is he going to produce for the Bengals? Where can you put him that he can produce? The dude checks all the boxes that I want an NFL receiver. Malik, the questions about Troy Franklin, the questions about these other receivers, the Jalen McMillans is, okay, how are they going to hold up against man-to-man coverage at the NFL level?
Yeah.
If, Joe Burrow throws him a 50-50 ball one-on-one with a cornerback, am I confident in a Jalen McMillan? Jalen Polk, am I confident that he's going to be able to run all the routes, whether it's inside or outside at the NFL level? When I look at Jermaine Burton, I absolutely love him as a wide receiver. I think he can do it all. I really do. And once again, my favorite thing is give me a receiver that has excellent hands and give me a receiver. This is something that I do. I nitpick when I look at receivers. Do you have spatial awareness? And this is whether it's in zone. Can you find the soft spot in the zone? And also the sideline. Do you have the ability to know where the sideline is? Can you toe tap with not just one toe, with two toes? And that was something that Jermaine Burton did time and time again, whether it was on out-breaking routes, his corner routes. He was excellent at, hey, getting in and out of my break, turning my head, get my hands up quick, and getting both toes down in the field of play. And that's something I didn't see with Troy Franklin. I didn't see all the time with Jalen McMillan. I didn't see all the time with these other wide receivers like Keon Coleman. Jermaine Burton may not have put up 1,000-yard season at the collegiate level, but damn, he will do it at the NFL level.
He was close to it, 700 some odd yards. I actually want to touch on this a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. People want to make the comparison between Jermaine Burton and Troy Franklin so much. Let's talk about it real quick, guys.
Yep.
Troy Franklin dropped as far as he did in the draft because there were serious concerns. Number one, about, you look at his size. He's like, 6'2", 6'3" whatever. And he weighed in at 170 pounds. This is a guy that very rarely faced press man coverage. And when he did, he struggled, and he struggled mightily to get his to get off press coverage. He struggled mightily. So, in the National Football League, you're going to get cornerbacks, you're going to get defensive backs to put hands on you. And the first thing as an offense is as an offense, you're going to be like, all right, well, if this guy gets a hand put on him, how is he going to respond? How is he going to react? Is he going to be easily, thrown off his route because he isn't necessarily a bigger guy?
Yep.
Right? Is that going to be a thing? Right? That was really what I think hurt a guy like Troy Franklin when he fell as far as he fell. So let's go a step further. How is Jermaine Burton against it? Jermaine Burton is violent. Jermaine Burton eviscerates man coverage. He is dominant against man coverage. He is great at finding the soft spot in the zone. That is what this guy does, and he's very, very physical at the point of attack when it's time to go up and grab the ball. That is what makes that's what makes Jermaine Burton special, and that's what makes the pick special, guys. Because in a pass-happy offense, we already said it before when we grabbed Mike Gesicki, but you now can't double Jamar Chase. Because what Jermaine Burton also allows Jamar Chase to do is one thing we always talked about, even when AJ Green was here, is we wanted to see AJ Green moved around a lot. And what people talked about with a guy and Jamar Chase, we're like, we want to see Jamar Chase move around a lot. But the issue was we didn't really have that deep threat outside of T. Higgins. And T. Higgins is more of a jump ball type of receiver, if you will. Jermaine Burton is a guy that could take the top off of a defense, and you've got to respect the speed. So I would envision Jermaine Burton being utilized on the outside as well as on the inside as well. I think you could see him kind of split those kind of reps and allow Jamar Chase to kind of be used everywhere. And that's something that I'm really, really excited about. At the University of Alabama, he proved that he could be dominant, whether it be in the slot, whether it be on the outside. He forced you. He forced you to, bring two defenders on him. And that happened quite often, to be honest with you guys. And you saw him go up for those 50-50 balls. He was aggressive with it. Don't let the frame fool you a little bit. This guy wants to win bad, man. And he wants to win, not just win games. He wants to truly win even those 50-50 balls. So, man, I'm excited for the Jermaine Burton pick. I think got an absolute dog. I think it's wrong to classify Jermaine Burton as a slot receiver or only as a slot receiver. He is so much more than that.
He played way more outside.
He played way more outside than he did inside. That guy is a physical specimen, and if the height is something you're worried about, I would say don't worry about that at all. Jamar Chase and him are about the same height, I believe, right? So it's like it's taller than Jamar. I think you get a lot. I think you can get a lot done with Jermaine Burton out there on the football field for you guys, man. And for us, I don't want to say for you guys, but for us, I'm really excited about the pick. I'm really, really excited. Anything else you want to add about the Jermaine Burton pick?
Yeah, once again, just looking at the alternatives, Malik. And before I get to there, Nick Saban, I understand he was his coach, but if Nick Saban's vote of confidence isn't enough, I take that into account personally. What he said on the live broadcast, yes, he's going to hype up his guys. I understand that. But you don't stand on the table for just anybody. Yes, he's your player, but Nick Saban's vote of confidence means something to me.
Yes.
Greatest coach in college football history. That means something to me for him to stand up on the table and say he is a great pick, and the words that he used was, hey, just emotional maturity. And if that's the biggest knock on a player in round 3, I'm willing to live with it. I 1000% I'm willing to live with it. So looking at the alternatives, guys, I'm a huge Roman Wilson fan. I think he was a great fit for the Steelers. Am I crying that Jermaine Burton was the pick over Roman Wilson? No, I think Roman Wilson's hands are elite, but Jermaine Burton offers more versatility on the inside and outside. Jalen McMillan, I think, is a super smooth receiver, but I can't see him going up and winning 50-50 balls.
I think Jermaine Burton's hands are elite. I think Jermaine Burton has better hands than Roman. I had Jermaine Burton ranked very, very high, man. And like I said, man, I'm just really excited about it. I think, again, Bengals fans are going to find out very shortly what we have. I can't wait to when I think Bengals fans are going to really start getting excited about the pick, guys. I think they're going to start getting excited about the pick when you see those training camp clips come out of him doing great against some of these cornerbacks that we like on Cincinnati, whether it be like Juice, because these guys are going to get the best out of each other and bring the best out of each other, man. And I think you got to be excited for this pick, man. But I'm head over heels for this guy, man. I'm head over heels. I can't wait for it.
No, completely. I'm with you.
Let's move on over to the Bengals' other third-round selection of McKinley Jackson. That was a pick that I think some Bengals fans, or most Bengals fans, thought it was pretty much a reach.
Yeah.
But again, if I'm following that mold when it comes to Jermaine Burton or whoever, you have to follow that same mold throughout the entire process. If there's a guy that you like, you go out there and you grab him.
Mm-hmm.
You ask questions later. I think McKinley Jackson, from what I saw, it seems like he has a lot left in his game. He does offer some pass rush ability, I guess, to a degree. But mainly you bring that guy in there because of his ability to keep his point of attack and stop the run at a very, very high clip. You're hopeful that you get a lot with a guy in McKinley Jackson as far as the run game goes. And you look at some of the signings that happened in our division, whether it be a Derrick Henry or whoever, you need to make sure that you have a guy that you feel comfortable in stopping the run, man. And I think that the Bengals whole thought process was, hey, man, we need to make sure that we have a guy that we believe in, a guy that we could truly build around, on the interior of the defensive line. They've sort of reshaped their entire interior of their defensive line. So people that have been kind of hanging on the roster for the last couple of years, it's time to step up. It's time to step up if you think you're going to make this roster, because it's not going to be as easy as it may have been in years past because of the lack of competition. You actually now have that competition, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, McKinley Jackson. This is where you guys, for me, how I'm justifying the pick in my mind too, is it fits a need. It really does fit a need, and that's where definitely a lower grade for me would be, right? Oh, okay. you could have got other better players, better prospects, better talent. But at the end of the day, he fits the need. He's 6'2", 325 pounds. What I saw with him that gives me, potential is great hand usage, right? His ability to just swipe other offensive tackles' hands. That's something you can work with. And it's very hard to teach, especially, at the going from college to the NFL is, hey, if you don't have that natural knack for beating offensive tackles' hands, getting the first step, that's something I also want in defensive tackles is, hey, can you show me explosiveness with your first step? Because that can't be taught. Right. There's a reason why I love Chop Robinson as an edge rusher. That can't be taught. Explosive first step, explosive hands, and he showed the potential. Malik, he had some spin moves. He had a couple nice swim moves. So McKinley Jackson at the bare floor gives you a big body that you can put at the defense tackle spot, at the nose tackle spot that you didn't have before. So McKinley Jackson, I like it. My only concern, once again, is I think there were some other players that you potentially could have taken, whether it's an interior offensive lineman like a Tanner Bortolini, whether it's a cornerback like Kyrie Jackson. I think there was other guys you could have taken, but at the end of the day, heading into training camp and heading into the season, I'm much more confident in this defensive line because now I don't have to rely on a Zach Carter. I've got two guys, Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, that I can say, hey, those are big bodies I can put next to my pass rushing BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankin. So the defensive line room as a whole, Malik, I'm more confident in it now than I was
I just want to be clear. I'm not justifying any pick, P. Carly. It's better to be like I'm being as real as possible about it. I said I did think it was an overreach, but clearly they felt like they may have not been in the position to grab that guy because you never know what other teams are thinking. It makes no sense to be negative, and be down in the dumps about the pick before these guys even touch the field. If the guy turns into Tyler Shelvin, man, then we can riot and all that kind of stuff like that. Do I think it was a reach? Yes. Do I think the Bengals should have went interior offensive line? Yes. All those things remain true. But guess what? The draft played out the way it did. I'm not going to sit here and complain. It does nothing. It does not. Listen, it has no bearing on my life in terms of making me unhappy or not. There are a lot of different things I wish the Bengals did in this draft. But all in all, I think that they attacked all of the areas that they had hoped. And I think that's all we could hope for, because I think if we didn't grab that, there would have been somebody complaining about something completely different. The defense was an issue last year. The defensive line was an issue last year. They tried to do everything in their power to make sure that it is a strength this year. We have over 500 people on the chat, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with us on your Saturday. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio or our in-home studio. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us and just having conversations, man, with us. So Misfit 85 says, sorry, there were no other nose tackle on the draft that can handle double teams other than Sweat and Jackson. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, man. So I understand it. Do I like it? That's a whole nother discussion. But again, we'll see how it all plays out. We'll see how it all plays out. Danny, you could take the reins for the next couple picks.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And just to touch real quick on that, guys, it's okay if there are other players that the Bengals didn't pick that are going to be very good in the league. And that's where I have the conversation with a lot of these guys, right? Like one guy, Tavondre Sweat, he went super early, way earlier than people expected. I'm super confident that dude is going to be a beast at the NFL level. Guys like Jared Verse, there's so many other players, guys, that are going to be successful at the NFL level. But let's switch it over round 4, pick number 115, Eric All, the tight end. This was one that a lot of Bengals fans were kind of unhappy about, right? And I understand the concerns. Biggest concern is the injury. To put it bluntly, he had a spinal surgery that came out today. His surgeon came out today on Twitter and debunked everything that what happened. I'm not going to say exactly what happened. I think it was he transferred from Michigan because they weren't medically clearing him. And the surgeon said, hey, everything about this dude after the surgery was fine, which shows in this past season after that surgery, Malik, he was playing damn good. And that's what Zach Taylor said in his press conference today. He's like, when you turn on the film of Eric All, you love what you see before his ACL surgery this year. So they're confident in where he is with his recovery. And at the end of the day, when you just turn on the film, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but man, I see a dude who's elite over the middle of the field. I see a dude who lined up in the slot, lined up in line. He's got great hands. He's 6'5". He's got your size that the Bengals want, and he can learn behind Mike Gesicki. So Eric All, I'm a huge fan of. And just to go a little more in depth, once again, guys, when you look at a tight end, you could say it's a reach. Sure. I think Eric All is a better prospect than Cade Silver. I think Eric All was a better prospect than Theo Johnson. I think Eric All potentially is a better prospect on the field than Ben Sinnott. And that's something that maybe a lot of Bengals fans might not like to hear. But if Eric All is healthy and if he recovers well from his ACL injury, I promise you guys are going to be very shocked with what you see on the field. He's a guy that can do it all. And you guys will not be complaining if he's on the field and he's running that seam route. If he's going to cook linebackers and cornerbacks because he's got great wiggle at the top of his routes, his breaks in and out of routes. That's my favorite part about him. I saw many slants with him at Iowa, many slants, whether it's, in breaking slants, out breaking slants. I love Eric All. He's a 3-level receiver. And like I said, he can play the slot. He can play your inline tight end. I'm a huge fan of him. And also, it doesn't hurt that he went to Iowa. Iowa is a, college that's known to be a tight end factory. TJ Hawkinson, many other tight ends. So Eric All is someone that I am extremely confident in. And at the end of the day, guys, it's day 3. If Eric All doesn't pan out to be a superstar tight end, that's okay. You're betting on him for potential, and I'm a huge fan because, hey, the dude is young. I believe he's 22 years old, and he's a guy, he's got the potential from being on the field. Malcolm Wilhelm said, how many tight ends will they roster? Who's the odd man out? So Gesicki, I'm confident Gesicki will be there. Drew Sample is a great blocking tight end, and for sure one of the Eric All / Tanner McLachlan will be there. It remains to be seen. Maybe Tanner Hudson, in my opinion, will probably be getting the cut if those two guys show up. That's how I would do it. Any touch on
it's
Eric
weird,
All?
right? Because I mean, a lot of this is predicated on obviously Eric Hall's health, right?
Yes.
If he's ready to go, is he going to start the season injured?
Yep.
I have a different thing for you. I have a different idea for you.
Yeah.
I don't think Drew Sample is going to be the Bengals tight end this year. I think the Bengals are going to move to a fullback.
Yep.
That's my bold prediction. I not bold prediction. It's probably not that bold, but I think Drew Sample is going to move to fullback.
Yep.
I think the Bengals are going to keep a fullback on the roster. They're going to probably go a little lighter at the running back spot, maybe.
Yep.
You'll get the fullback on the roster because remember, Drew Sample was lined up a lot in the backfield last year as well. And we might now be talking about Drew Sample as one of the best fullbacks in football at that point, right? I think that we could see that. I think we could see Drew Sample. Obviously, you can still play the tight end role because, it's not that far-fetched. We also have had people in H-back role before, whether it be Ryan Hewitt when he was here. Now that was a different regime a little bit, but I envision a scenario where Drew Sample is the fullback of the Bengals next year. And I think the tight ends the Bengals will be obviously Mike Gesicki, Eric All, and Tanner McLachlan.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. You obviously have the other tight end who is not really a tight end. He's the Bengals. I forgot his name. He's the Bengals punt holder. Punt holder.
Mitchell Wilcox?
Not punt holder. Mitchell Wilcox on with the Patriots.
Oh yeah.
What's the guy's name? He's the long guys.
Long
you guys
snapper?
you could put long snapper for the Bengals. But I think the NFL should sort of just make that into a position because they don't do anything else besides really that, honestly. I forgot the guy's name right now. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but it's going to come to me.
Cal Adamitis?
Yeah.
Adamitis.
Yeah. I could see that, him being long snapper, so he would make up that other tight end spot, if you will. I think the Bengals probably relegate Tanner Hudson to the practice squad.
Yeah.
Or Tanner McLachlan. I don't see a world in which Tanner McLachlan's good.
Yes.
He's really good. And we'll talk about that pick a little bit later. But I think that a lot of it predicates on what happens with the tight end spot and the maneuvering there happens if Eric All is healthy and ready to go.
Yep.
I look at it and I see, I don't necessarily, I like Eric All.
Yeah.
I like Eric All.
Yeah.
I think there's a large contingency of people who are like, man, we got an Iowa tight end and he's going to be good. Yeah. And I think that's the thought process there. That's the hope there that, Iowa produces a lot of tight ends. Most of his production was actually at the at Michigan, actually.
Yeah.
I think Eric All is going to be a very good player pending health. And I like the move there in the 4th round because you're swinging on guys hoping that this guy could be a very good player for us pending health.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tanner Hudson could be a very, very good player for the Cincinnati Bengals. Dan, I agree with you.
You said
Tanner
Hudson.
not Tanner.
Yeah, no, you good.
Eric All could be a very good player for the Bengals. I think Eric All will be a very good player for the Bengals pending health. If he's able to be anything really in this league. And the one thing I really, really like about Eric All, and I apologize, guys, I've been live for like the last 2 days for like a total of like almost 7 hours, close to 8 hours. So if I sound a little jumbled, that's why I apologize in advance. But when you look at it, what Eric All allows you to do is he can block. He can receive. There's no more of this guy is a specialized whatever he is, so that's why he's on the field.
Mm-hmm.
It really, when you look at Eric All's film, you see potential there.
Yes.
You see his ability to block. You see his ability to run after the catch. You see his ability to make contested grabs. You see everything that you would want in the tight end spot. Duke Tobin looked at me at the combine when I talked to him about this, and he said that they obviously would like to not have the tight end position be a revolving door. And then Bengals fans were like, well, why are you addressing the tight end position? I view Tanner McLachlan as, because Tanner McLachlan is also kind of that mold. He's not the blocker that Eric All is necessarily, but he's also not the thicker, but he's a willing blocker. He is a willing blocker. You can line him up in line. He can receive. He can do all those that make contested catches. Tanner McLachlan and Eric All could both be very good picks for the Bengals in the future.
Yeah.
Very good picks for the Bengals in the future. And when we did State of the Jungle War Room, we talked about the potential of a Tanner McLachlan on the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am supposed to be talking about Eric All, and I'm talking about Tanner McLachlan.
Yeah.
So again, I like Eric All. I like the pick.
Yeah.
I think if he's healthy, is going to be really, really good. But man, this is like I said, I understand the pick. Could they have gone interior offensive line there? Sure, they could have. But all in all, you got to like it.
Completely. I'm with you. And we'll get into Tanner McLachlan in a second. But how I view the draft also, guys, is it is rare. You're never going to get 8 starters with the draft. That never happens. Never. So for me, I think doubling up on tight end, to be honest with you guys, I think it's smart. Because if I can say, hey, in 2 years, 3 years from now, one of Eric All / Tanner McLachlan is the Bengals starting tight end, I think that's a win. And I think there's a strong possibility that one of those two is the future starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. Mm-hmm. One thing is clear. The Cincinnati Bengals have a type of tight end right now, and it is more of a taller tight end that is a damn good receiver, and that is both of them. But let's go to our next pick, Josh Newton. Josh Newton, cornerback out of TCU. He's a guy who graded highly from PFF, Malik. And Josh Newton is a guy who fell, to be honest. When you look at where he was projected to go before, the season to where he was now, a lot of people were down on him. And a lot of people, as the process went, it was because he wasn't the flashy cornerback that these other cornerbacks were, right? The TJ Tampas of the world, the Kyrie Jacksons. I think those guys are all flashier. I think some of them even have better potential than Josh Newton. But at the end of the day, how I view him, he's very versatile. He has the size to play outside, 6 foot, about 180. He played most of his snaps at TCU on the outside. And I thought he was productive. I saw him. I think he was a pretty good athlete when I watched the film. I saw him go up against some very good competition. And like I said, I think he was good in the run game as well. I think he's a very solid pick. I'm not going to doubt Lou Anarumo when it comes to his viewpoint for cornerbacks. I think right now Josh Newton slides in right with DJ Ivy as, the backup cornerbacks. I still would not be opposed to bringing in a Xavier Howard.
I want to touch on one thing real quick because I see people saying about, some people were talking about Tanner McLachlan. I want to just say this really, really quickly about him. Daniel Jeremiah, who all these people you guys follow on Twitter, and they base their boards and all the kinds of stuff. Daniel Jeremiah is one of the OGs of this, obviously. He does a great job. He had Tanner McLachlan as his number 2 tight end in this draft class, behind only Brock Bowers. And when you turn on the tape, it's undeniable to see why. Tanner McLachlan is no cheapskate. He left Arizona, I believe, as the leading receiver, Daniel, and tight end receiver with 984 yards. You know who else went to Arizona, Daniel? And no, I'm not saying he's better than him. Robert Gronkowski went to Arizona. And he didn't have the production, right? He wasn't really used as much to his full ability that he could have been using. You see how he turned out great. He is an older prospect and all that kind of stuff. Yep. But I also think that Tanner McLachlan is coming in for I think Tanner McLachlan is coming in to be a very, capable player for the Cincinnati Bengals and a guy that could contribute almost immediately. And that's what the guys on the panel on the broadcast raved about. Sorry, I know you were talking about. No, you're good. I know you were talking about Newton, so I'll let you finish on him.
No, you're good. Once again, I think we'll talk about McLachlan in a second. I'm on the same wavelength as you with that. I think Josh Newton he's good. I think he's solid. I really don't, think that he's going to step in and be, a star cornerback for the Bengals. I think he's got your prototypical size of 6 foot. I love his versatility, his inside outside versatility. And he put on, like I said, some pretty good tape. I remember I went back and rewatched, I believe it was the BYU game. I was watching Cooper Beebe, and he really stood out. Josh Newton. I was like, okay, who's this cornerback? He played on the outside. I saw he was physically strong, even, being a little more underweight. I'm a fan of Josh Newton. I think there was some other talent that was definitely on the board that I was like, okay, like I was a huge fan of Kyrie Jackson. I believe he was still on the board then. There were some other guys that I was definitely a fan of, but at the end of the day, Malik, I think that he provides good depth. And for me, when you look at round 5, guys, round 5 is a crapshoot. You're going to get maybe 5 of these guys at most. 4, realistically, 3 to 4 of these guys will be starters in 3 years and longer. So most of these guys are going to be role players. Most of these guys are going to be, just practice squad guys. So Josh Newton, I think, provides depth, and I think he's solid.
So I'm going to go out and I'm going to say this, guys. People talked about TJ Tampa, and somebody alluded in the comment section why he fell, whether it be as slow and being a little slower. The rest of the league viewed him, obviously. There's how people on Twitter view him, and there's how the league views him, guys. Sometimes the league are higher on players than, fan bases or, whatever the case may be, or media. That's why I think TJ Tampa fell. But I'll say this. I think that when you talk about defensive backs and the thought process behind drafting him, there's one guy that I will never, ever question, and that's Anarumo. Yeah. Anarumo has taken defensive backs that careers have fallen off an absolute cliff and gotten the most out of them. He made Eli Apple into I don't want to say respected, but a capable starter. Yeah. Eli Apple had some of the best years of his career in Cincinnati. Some of the best years in his career. It's the reason why he got the contract he did with the Miami Dolphins. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but Anarumo is the reason why guys like Eli Apple got another contract. He's the reason why guys like Flowers got a contract. Mm-hmm. He finds roles for defensive backs. And it brings me back to that Joe Judge tweet. It's the reason why I think Anarumo will make a fantastic head coach one day. And the tweet goes like this. And when not tweet, he said this. He said, "Don't tell me why players don't fit your system." He said, "Tell me why a player does fit your system. What is it that you're going to do to make said player fit your system?" That's what Anarumo said. I mean, that's what Joe Judge said. And I think about that when I think about Anarumo. You look at so many of the different pieces that have come through Cincinnati, and you wonder, okay, how's this guy going to fit with the Bengals? And Lou just finds a way to get the most out of him. Do you guys know Chidobe Awuzie, when the Bengals first got him, people were kind of like whatever with the pick? Yeah. When I say people, I mean media pundits, people that analyze picks and signings. They were whatever with the pick. You see, I was, I guess, unfortunate enough to watch a lot of Dallas Cowboys football, so I knew what the Bengals were getting with a guy in Cheeto for a while. But I think it says a lot when you have a coach that's able to identify said player. There's a lot of coaches that just coach. And there's coaches that bring out the best in guys. Chidobe Awuzie got the contract that he got in Tennessee in large part to the work that he did in Cincinnati. And that's because Anarumo got a lot out of him before the ACL tear. And even with the ACL tear, he still found a role for him to try to work his way back. He wasn't necessarily the same, but guess what? When it came time for him to get a payday, you saw it. Let's touch on the Dax Hill thing. People are saying Dax Hill looked worse and worse by the day. No, again, you're talking about identifying.
Yep.
You talk about identifying. Let's talk about it, guys. Where did, and this is my Anarumo praise for a second. Where did Dax Hill look the best at last year? In the slot, covering tight ends. You know, it takes a very special coach to identify what's wrong with a player or struggles of a player and be willing, doesn't matter if they're a first round pick or a seventh round pick or undrafted, but be willing to check their own ego, because ideally that was a pick that he also liked, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to find a role for that guy. And then you find a role for that guy, and that role is what his new role's expected to be. So again, I'll go a step further. To me, I think when Anarumo was able to do that and say, hey, you know what, Dax, we're not going to have you just struggle on an island. We want to see you do well in the National Football League. We're not going to just cut you. We're not going to just bury you on the depth chart. We're not going to just say you were the issue. We're not going to pull a Green Bay Packers what they did with Darnell Savage, a guy that showed so much potential with the Green Bay Packers, and then he didn't work out, and then they buried him. They benched him several times, and he left. And he didn't get the contract that he could have got somewhere else. But you think about it, Dax Hill's role is expected to be competing for a starting cornerback spot, whether that be in the slot, whether that be covering tight ends. There's so much potential for Dax Hill on the roster, but it takes a lot to say about that coach or this coaching staff to be able to be like, you know what? This guy isn't working out at this position, so we'll find a new role for him within the defense. I think it takes a special coach to do that. And Mike, I see you in the comment section. You clearly want me to address you, so I'll address you, brother. You said, did I see Zach Taylor's press conference? I talk to people within that building on a regular basis, humbly. I'm not trying to be rude at all, man. So I've literally been saying on every State of the Jungle, Dax Hill was moving to corner. Dax Hill was moving to corner. Through the signings and everything that the Bengals, Dax Hill is moving to corner. I think they're doing right by the player. They're still trying to find a role for him on the team. That is what I'm trying to get at. They're still trying to find a role for him on the team. It's up to Dax Hill now to answer that challenge. When he was playing in those roles, whether it be covering a tight end, because I believe, Daniel, that is going to be a new role in the league soon.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a new role. Remember a couple of years ago, people were so slow to be like, oh, slot corner isn't a position.
Yep.
I think that is going to be a role. I think that is going to be a role soon for teams. Mm-hmm. I think that Dax Hill is going to really stand out in that role. You look at the way he was used at Michigan. He was used closer to the line of scrimmage. He would be able to roam around the middle of the field. And it's different. He is a specialized player, and that's why it's important that he went to a specialized team. I don't think Dax Hill is just an outside corner. I don't think Dax Hill is just I think he can do so much more. I think when I watch Dax Hill, I want you guys to do me a favor. For those of you, some of you are probably in the chat a lot older than me, but I want you guys to go turn on Micah Hyde when he was with the Green Bay Packers and how he did not have a defined role before he left Green Bay to go to Buffalo. But they said, that's a guy we need to get on the field. So they got him on the field. I saw flashes of Dax Hill. We all saw flashes of Dax Hill. We just need to see it more consistently. And we need to see what that role might look like for him. But on the Josh Newton front, Daniel, I will never discount Lou's evaluation on the corner. I see the vision with Josh Newton.
Yep.
He is a physical cornerback. He is a guy that wants to get his hands on you. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. One thing for sure, the Bengals are loaded at competition on the defensive back end. Mm-hmm. They're loaded. You now insert Dax Hill into that cornerback room, okay, because the safety room is already crowded.
Yep.
The young guy that they just drafted as well from Ole Miss fits that Mike Hilton role. You know, it's going to be interesting, man. But Daniel, continue.
No, I'm with you. I think that's last point I'll make on that is with the Dax Hill thing. you just look at this role, right? At the end of the day, guys, Josh Newton is a fine pick. He gives you depth at the cornerback position. You look at your cornerbacks, you got DJ Turner, who was a second-round pick. You got Cam Taylor-Britt. Now you got Dax Hill, who can play slot or can potentially play on the outside. At the end of the day, you're looking a lot better than you were before. You got Mike Hill, who's currently at your slot cornerback. You have so much depth right now, and that's the concern about, and I feel like that's the biggest difference that, fans and we all need to really understand is, hey, like, it's not how our team looks right now. It's after 3 injuries, how does our team look at week 8? How does our offensive line look heading into the playoffs? And that's what this whole process is about. So right now, I'm a huge fan of the Dax Hill thing. I think Dax Hill is going to be one of the surprises of the entire Bengals this year, to be honest. I think Dax Hill, with what I saw, he went up against the Chiefs, and I saw the way he guarded Travis Kelce. I saw the way he guarded many of these tight ends. When he was man-to-man against the tight ends, Malik, he solved the issue that we saw so many times this past year. Dalton Schultz killed the Bengals. Pat Freiermuth killed the Bengals. So many tight ends killed the Bengals, but Lou, to the end of the season, started putting Dax Hill on these tight ends more. And I think that was one of the really golden tickets for the Bengals to really say, hey, that's how we can stop these tight ends from getting these 5-yard gains, from getting these easy first downs. So all in all, Josh Newton, I thought it was a fine pick. And I'm excited about the cornerback room. So let's switch it over to our next pick, 194, Tanner McLachlan. Round 6. Tanner McLachlan, once again, guys, 6'5". We've got to talk about it. Yes, the age is a concern. Sure, he's going to be 25 by the time the season starts. But when you just, once again, this is something, I'll just turn on the tape and tell me what you guys see. Truly, tell me what you guys see with Tanner McLachlan, because for me, I see a dude. He was a former wide receiver. I believe it was both in high school as well as he came into Arizona, I believe, as a wide receiver and transition tight end. And the dude is a red zone monster. And for me, that's how I'm a huge fan of how they're building this offense, right? I look at Dan Pitcher. Dan Pitcher has no reason for this offense not to succeed this year, right? We can talk about the running backs a little bit later. But as far as the tight end room goes, I am super confident in how they're building it. You got 3 guys of the same exact mold. You got Mike Gesicki, who, if healthy, he can take up 60% of your snaps, and he can be, I truly believe, one of the most productive weapons on this Bengals team. But let's talk about the depth, right? Now you got Eric All 6'5". You got Tanner McLachlan, 6'5". Mm-hmm. McLachlan was the more productive college receiver. And once again, guys, when you compare him to these other tight ends, Jatavion Sanders doesn't step in day one and dominate at tight end. These other tight ends, Ben Sinnott is a fine tight end. I think he can potentially be a good tight end. Cade Stover, Theo Johnson, they've all got their question marks, but the one thing that those guys don't have that I truly believe Tanner McLachlan has is the ability to make a guy miss. And in this offense, if Tanner McLachlan is getting playing time, you're going to have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton, Joe Burrow quarterback, and McLachlan. I guarantee you guys, he will never get doubled. So if you have a guy 6'5" who was never going to get doubled in the red zone, he is a monster. And I'm telling you guys, round 6, I'm a huge fan of this value because, like I said, Dan Pitcher and the Bengals have a great tight end room where it's versatile. And hey, if I want to throw Tanner McLachlan in for 5 snaps in a game, I believe he's going to be able to beat a linebacker. I think he's shifty enough. And once again, so many times with this Bengals offense, it's a 5-yard dump off pass. It's a little drag route. And Tanner McLachlan can do that. He can stretch the field as well. But the best thing you're going to get is a red zone threat, 6'5", can make guys miss, can hurdle guys. At round 6, you look at the other value that was on the board. I am super confident in Tanner McLachlan. I love the fact that they doubled up. I'm telling you guys, if one of those two, Eric All or Tanner McLachlan, can be the Bengals' rotational piece within 2 years, I love this. So they draft for potential and 6'5". I love him.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of Tanner McLachlan. And Michael is very angry in the chat. He says, so how bad does a first-round pick have to perform before y'all admit it was a bad pick or just mismanaged? I'll say this. I'm not ready to say anybody was a bad pick. Guys, okay. Let's talk about this for a second. I'm gonna go a little detail. Sorry if you guys don't want to hear me do a monologue, but let's go a little detail first. What pick was Dax Hill taken with?
I believe the 30 or the 28th.
The 20, it was like 28th, something, right?
It was late.
So you draft a guy in the back end of the first round. Clearly, he wasn't as polished or as ready to go as you'd think. This was Dax Hill's first year truly starting, guys. Truly starting. The league has become so, unless you're drafting a guy top 5, top 10, expect there to be growing pains. Expect there to be growing pains. Like, the league has become so instant gratification is needed. Right?
Mhm.
We've all been like at the place where we're like, oh man, instant gratification is needed. We need to see this guy do amazing things in the league before we're, or if we don't see it year one, he's a bust. Dax was the 31st pick. And we're asking, when are we clear, or when do we say that Dax Hill was a bad pick? We got to be real. We got to be serious. We got to be serious. These guys, especially defensive backs, let's just take safeties, for instance, but not even corners. Let's take safeties. They get so much thrown at them coming to the National Football League. You have to have the smarts. You have to make sure that you're up to speed. He didn't have necessarily the best mentorship. Jesse Bates was pissed off with the Bengals that whole situation was what it was. But again, I think you realize, okay, Dax Hill didn't work out of year one. Mismanaged would have been, hey, we're keeping the guy. We're going to force him to stay at that spot next year because we spent a premium pick on him. We spent the first round pick on him. So we need to see it through. We need to see it through. So I think when we're slow on at least on the state of the jungle, the sit down Malik, right? We're slow to push the panic button. We're slow to be like, hey, we don't believe in a guy's potential. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to crucify. I'm not going to crucify a guy. That's just not me. I'm not going to do that. I think there is so much more on the plate. I think there's so much more on the plate, man. The Packers. I keep going back to the Packers. The Packers were ready to say Rashawn Gary was a bust after year one. And they wound up handing him out an extension, didn't they?
Yep.
Let these guys develop. I see people in here down on Miles Murphy. I don't know if we were seeing the same game. I saw Miles Murphy get better and better as the season went on. I saw him get pressure. I even saw him getting sacks. That is a guy that literally the entire Clemson defense struggled towards the end. The entire defense struggled. So what happened? You kind of got to get retaught some of the stuff that you may have learned in college. You have to learn how to do things the correct way in the pros. But I don't think Miles Murphy was a bad pick. I'll never get on board saying that. I don't think Dax Hill was necessarily a bad pick. Maybe he was used in the wrong manner. Sure, but that's something you would only learn by putting him out there. He looked damn good in the preseason, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looked really good. I think that there's a lot of players that show potential. There's another guy the Bengals drafted in the third round last year I'm really high on. You know who that is? You know who that is, Daniel? Jordan Battle.
Yeah.
Jordan Battle. Because I saw the way he was used at Alabama. Oh, I say he's going to feel like a glove in the Bengals defense. He's going to feel like a glove. He's going to be that enforcer role. But again, this is Lou once again realizing there are things that we need to do better. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring in veteran presence. We're going to bring more competition into the safety room. There is no telling if Geno Stone's season that he had last year was a flash in the pan or if it's something he's going to do consistently. We don't know that. Right? Do you guys know that?
Yeah.
I just think that when you look at it, guys, I think we got to be slow to quickly judge these guys sometimes. That's my thoughts. And Mike, I appreciate you, man. Regardless if we agree or not, I appreciate you coming in the comment section because at the end of the day, I think getting to the bottom of these questions and answering these questions is how we all get better, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying, brother. Trust me, I appreciate the hell out of you, man, for commenting. I really do. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else on a Saturday night besides talking to you guys. So I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the disagreement. I appreciate the discourse because that's what we're all about. We're not going to always agree on every pick, on every opinion. There are people who think this draft is an F. I don't think that this draft's an F. People who think this draft is a D. I don't think this draft is a D. People who think this draft is a C. I don't think this draft is a C. I think this draft is probably a B, B plus. To me, I think that this draft is a culmination of the Zach Taylor era. And I've said that. I think that I don't give them high marks, obviously. I can't grade them honestly. I can't grade people honestly for having the first overall pick in every round. I can't grade you for having the 5th overall pick in every single round. But what I can do is I can grade you from having the 18th overall pick and being tempted to do so many things besides doing right by your football team. To me, this draft was the culmination of the picks that we are making are to make our football team better for the long term. We always say it. The draft is to, it's for the future. Free agency is for the now. Allow these guys to develop. That's why I think Lou is doing so right. That's why I think he's doing so right, man. Would I have went a little bit of a different edge rusher personally in the draft? Daniel, I know that's your guy, but I probably would have. Personally, that's me. Yeah. I love Gabriel Murphy. I'm surprised he went undrafted, but clearly there was something there that maybe I'm not seeing. And maybe that's why I sit behind this desk and give my opinion and I'm not inside of a front office. Maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But that guy to me showed up consistently on the field. I also realized I feel like the Bengals have a mold of defensive ends that they like.
Yeah.
Gabriel Murphy was on the smaller side of that.
Yeah.
Jonah Ellis, another guy that I was high on, was on the smaller side of that. So I can understand why they don't do certain things that I would do because it's a lot like anybody, like a manager, whatever job you work for, a manager comes in and he has just different ways of doing things. Everybody has their own different ways of doing things. It's clear the Bengals MO is different from the MO that I maybe have thought. For me, I don't give a damn what size you are. I don't care if you're 6'5". I don't care if you're 6'2". Can you rush the passer? Can you do it effectively? And can you do it consistently? I felt like Latu got a lot of love on that defensive line of UCLA, but I feel like Gabriel Murphy deserved a lot of love too. And I think he could do well with the Minnesota Vikings, but that's neither here nor there. We're supposed to be on the Tanner McLachlan pick. I think the Tanner McLachlan pick was a good pick. I think it was a good pick. And I think it shores you up the tight end spot. If you think the Bengals got a lot out of guys like Tanner Hudson, no shot at him. What could they do with a guy like Tanner McLachlan who leaves Arizona as the leading receiving threat for tight ends in school history? You get younger. Tanner Hudson is, 30? And I think it's fine as well. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah. No, I agree. Tanner McLachlan, I'm with you. I think it was a very good pick. And just to touch on some of the things and switching over, obviously, to our next pick, I mean, let's talk about the defensive line, right? Our next pick was Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss, who a guy I like, and we'll get into it. But just to look at the defensive line, guys, just to finish off, we cannot judge these guys until they are 4 years into it. I mean, obviously we can judge him now, but like Dax Hill, if we judge him now versus at the end of this season, it's going to be two completely different things. If we judge Dax Hill at the end of his rookie season versus where he is now, it is two completely different grades. So to touch on like the Dax Hill thing, we are going to have a completely different perspective of Dax Hill in a year from now, which is why it's important to give these guys time to develop. They're still young guys. They're still young adults. This is the first time a lot of them are truly getting real coaching, whether it's technique, whether it's different positions. So let's take our time, especially with a guy like Myles Murphy, to talk about the defensive end room. Right now, we got Trey Henderson, absolute stud. This is a big year for Myles Murphy. Not going to put it any two ways. This is Myles Murphy's year. And the Bengals, in my opinion, made the vote of confidence, not just for Myles Murphy, but hey, that they trusted their pick 2 years ago by not taking a guy like Jared Verse. Obviously, Amarius Mims fits the need for an offensive tackle of the future, but a guy like Jared Verse sitting you at round 1, that's a vote of confidence saying, hey, we trust Myles Murphy and what he's going to potentially bring to us. So Myles Murphy, I'm very excited to see what he potentially could bring this year. And I think he's going to get a lot of burn. So Myles Murphy, I'm excited about. But looking at Cedric Johnson, to me, he is of the mold of a Joseph Asai. He is, of the same exact size. Him, Cam Sample, they're all the same exact size, but they all bring different things. I don't think Joseph Asai coming out of college was as, athletic of a pass rusher as Cedric Johnson is. And in the same fold, I don't think Cedric Johnson, my biggest knock on him is, hey, one, he is not the strongest in the run game. He's not. He gets bullied many times by offensive tackles, whether an offensive tackle just completely cuts him out of a play, and he's washed out of that play. But for me, the benchmarks I'm looking at with Cedric Johnson that I think you guys should definitely take away is when his effort is always there. I love an edge rusher who can get upfield and turn around and come back and make a play in the run. That's what he did many times. Against J.C. Latham, he did it. Got upfield. It was a Jalen Milroe quarterback draw, busted his ass all the way back, and he got there to stop Jalen Milroe for 2 yards. So his effort is always on high. He goes to the weak side help many times. If he's on the right side of the edge, comes all the way across, he's got an open lane, and he many times makes a play. So I love his effort. I think, he was a great culture fit at Ole Miss. All the coaches raved about him. All his teammates raved about him. He's athletic enough to drop in a pass coverage. That's something I saw many times. Ole Miss literally dropped him into zone in, the shallow zone, and they showed that with Cedric Johnson. At the end of the day, he is being drafted to this team because of his traits, because he showed the play strength, and because he showed the ability to he got pressure, Malik. He got pressure on the quarterback, and he didn't do it with any pass rush moves. That's my other knock. He wasn't out there with the swim move. He wasn't out there, with the spin move. He wasn't doing any of that. And that's what I think my justification for, okay, what is Lou Anarumo thinking? What is Zach Taylor thinking with this? They're getting a hyper.
What is Marion Hobby thinking with this? Marion Hobby is one of the best defensive line coaches in football.
Yeah.
So they're, again, I can see if there was a position coach or a coach in there who I just think that they're just not good at what they do.
Yeah.
But I really believe Marion Hobby is truly one of the better defensive line coaches in football.
Yeah.
He's really gotten the most out of this group. He's really helped a lot of people's shape a lot of people's careers.
Yeah.
And man, when I look at it, I say he must see something that I don't see, right? They don't go after a guy like Gabriel Murphy. Malik, clearly this is why you sit behind a desk and you commentate on the things the Bengals do, and you're not the one calling the shots, because clearly you don't know what you're talking about. Or maybe you do know what you're talking about, but again, we all can't be right. We all can't be 100% right. There's nobody that has all the answers. And I also want to just caution this too. I see that there are a lot of people out there that follow grades of draft. Consider it like this. There are people who grade the Bengals draft, but it's a lot like a PFF mock draft. You could do a PFF mock draft and they could grade your draft an F. I mean, not an F. They wouldn't never do that, but they could grade your draft at like a C or a B. But you could feel like you hit every single need. But they're basing it off of their board, their consensus board. It's not necessarily that they're saying that the picks are bad. They're just saying based on who they would have preferred or who was available, they think you could have done X, Y, Z. So I wouldn't no draft is ever going to be looked at as perfect. I think the Rams had a great draft. I think the Steelers had a great draft. But if you ask PFF, they probably gave them a bad grade or somewhere at some point in there. So that's just my thoughts, man.
No, I'm with you. And we got some comments. I mean, so Jeff H said Eric All, just going back for a second, he said Eric All is a joke. All I'll say, man, is go watch Eric All versus Penn State. Turn on the film. Eric All versus Penn State. Search that on YouTube. Or just search up Eric All, Iowa versus Penn State. Go watch that game. Go watch and tell me what you see. So I don't think he's a joke.
So I think joke is harsh. I won't say that. But I think you and I are a little bit more aligned. Like I'm more high on the McLachlan pick than I am the Eric All pick personally.
Yes.
But again, Daniel, that's a prime example. Me and Daniel see film, differently in some sense. I see the flashes with Eric All. I'm just concerned about how he comes back from the ACL tear. If his doctor is never going to come out and say, hey, he's bad. He's not in great shape and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think you have to believe that obviously the medical's checked out, or if else the Bengals probably wouldn't have spent a pick on him. You know what I mean? So you only could play the wait and see game and see what happens.
Completely. And that's where I think it's important that you do have differing opinions. I promise you guys, in these war rooms, the Bengals front office, I'm sure, have different opinions. Everybody has a different opinion on players. And at the end of the day, all we're doing right now is just discussing how do we see this player fitting. And looking at our guy like Cedric Johnson, there's a chance he doesn't make the roster. And there's a 1,000% chance where that's possible. At the end of the day, for me, I see him. I think it's a fine pick. There was definitely other talent on the board, but Cedric Johnson's the guy. If he were to see success with the Bengals, it's because he develops pass rush moves from a Marion Hobby, and his athletic tools take over from that. So let's switch over round 7, Malik. We got 2 last picks. Dejon Anthony, I believe that's how we say his name. Dejon Anthony. I have mixed feelings about him. We posted, his highlight hits on Jaden Daniels. He's a big time hitter. In coverage, he was okay. He was fine.
And guys, drop your questions down in the comment section. We're gonna get to your questions after we just get through the all the picks. We're gonna get to. I promise you, we'll get to all your questions, and I want to hear from you guys as well.
Yep. Drop down your guys' questions. And I thought he was fine in coverage, Malik. I thought as a safety coming down into the box, I thought he was okay. He had some big time hits. I don't think he was great in the run game. Like he made the big time hits, but there's many times went for 8 ankle tackles. Didn't show a whole lot of strength. A lot of times running backs pushed him over. I thought he was fine. I love his versatility. In round 7, that's what I'm gonna vote on. I mean, you look at last year, he played everywhere. He played in the slot. He played as the box safety. He played as the deep third safety. He played as the deep half safety. He played on the outside corner at times. You're getting a guy who's versatile. You're getting a guy who played 3 years at the collegiate level, and he was a starter for them. So it's a fine pick. At the end of the day, round 7, you're getting a guy. I want to bet on his potential. And if you see those hits on Jaden Daniels, I think that's pretty much, I'm very confident that he can be a good guy in the, in special teams. So Dejon Anthony, that's what I saw out of him. I thought he was, like I said, he was fine in coverage. So that's why I thought of him.
Yeah. I listen, I'm agreeing with you. I thought that he showed flashes. I thought he was fine. And I thought you have something to work with there. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think that the Bengals are sort of trying to recreate that Mike Hilton mold. I can't help but feel that way. But honestly, somebody's got to be the odd man out. You can't have a bunch of people take over the Mike Hilton role. But I think that blitzing style role, because will the Bengals re-sign Mike Hilton at this point? I wouldn't expect that necessarily, right? He's going to be hitting 30. But when I look at it, it's like, okay, right, he's from the same school as Mike Hilton. He grades very similar to Mike. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, yeah, is that what they're trying to go for? Are they trying to say that they needed a versatile defensive back that they feel like can, offer so much versatility, whether it be stopping the run, whether it be being physical, whether it be rushing the passer as an extra blitzer? Maybe that's what they're hoping for with him. Maybe that's what they're hoping for. And like, what better way to have a guy that looks very similar and mold-wise to Mike Hilton be coached up by who else? Mike Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought process. Again, will it backfire? Who knows? But it's the 7th round.
Exactly.
It's the 7th round. You hope to get something. I still hope DJ Ivey turns into something for the Bengals.
Yeah,
because I like DJ Ivey.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think it was a fine pick. Versatile, add some depth. Let's see how he does in training camp. The final pick is one that I see a lot of people are excited about. Matt Lee.
Yes.
Center. Let me just say this. He started 3 years for Miami, and he was productive. He was extremely productive. And this is a part of the draft for me, I think, that saved it, because when you look at those previous 4 picks, there was a lot of talent on the interior offensive line that went off the board. This entire interior offensive line class, Malik, was very good. Extremely good. Jackson Powers-Johnson, I think, will be a great starter. I think Zach Frazier, Tanner Bortolini, all these guys, Cooper Beebe. There was a ton of potential, and this is what, in my opinion, I think the Bengals should have went a little earlier, but they ended up with Matt Lee. I'm not quite sure why he fell, but you look at him, like I said, he's a 3-year starter at the University of Miami, and when you turn on the tape as well, he's consistent. That's what you're getting. You're getting a dude who is always at the right place at the right time. I believe he's got shorter arms, but when you look at him, he's always on balance when it comes to his pass blocking. In the run game, I think it's a little bit different. Sometimes he was falling over his feet a little bit, but in the pass game, he was always on balance, and it remains to be seen. We've got to see him go up against some great competition, some great defensive linemen. In round 7, I truly think he can be a potential, starter in the future. So round 7, I'm glad they address the interior offensive line. This dude is not a project. He can step in and be a high level, I think he can be a high level lineman at the NFL level. So Matt Lee, it is round 7, but I'm confident, and I think it fits a need.
Yeah, there were a lot of people on the draft stream of we were watching on ESPN that were like, "Oh, this guy at best is a career backup at center," and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, maybe what am I seeing that other people are not seeing? What are we seeing that other people aren't seeing? I think it's one of those things where I think, you look at Matt Lee. Matt Lee isn't necessarily the strongest, but that could change in the National Football League. But he does always has his hands in the right place. He always has his hands in the right place, and he always has active hands. And I think that makes you hopeful that guy could become something special. It isn't by chance that in 2 years he hadn't given up 2 sacks in 2 years, right? And I believe the only sack he maybe have given up only 1 sack in his entire college career that PFF credited him for. So I think that he could be a really, really special player. And again, I think that this is one where they're being a little unfair to him. That's just my thought process a little bit. I think that he has a lot more to offer a football team. And I think Matt Lee, I don't see him replacing Ted Karras necessarily as a center this year. I don't see him necessarily even competing for the left guard spot. But could he? You never know. He can come in and just blow people away in training camp. Mm-hmm. We've had situations in the National Football League where that has happened. So I think that he could be a fine player. And I also don't know if this spells the end of Trey Hill either.
Yeah. I mean, it's depth at the end of the day, right? You look at Matt Lee, we've got to see him compete. We've got to see him, he's got to go out there and compete. And at the end of the day, we got so many guys on this roster now. Cedric Johnson, the safety / cornerback that they just drafted. You've got to see these guys compete in training camp, and then we'll see. But now's the part of the time, guys, drop your comments down below. Drop your comments, and let's get to some of these questions. Just run through some of these. I thought Jalen Wright should have been a Bengal. Let me just say this. He is a great fit for the Miami Dolphins. I am he's going to be a stud. And if you guys are playing fantasy football, I would be definitely looking at Jalen Wright. He's going to be a home run pick. I'm not going to be shocked next year when he's got multiple 50-plus yard touchdowns. The dude is an explosive playmaker. And in that system, I'm a huge fan of seeing Jalen Wright with the Miami Dolphins. Percy Jackson has a question for you, Malik. Malik, do you think that our offense, O-line included, is better overall with this draft?
Yes, Percy. I think that this is going to be one of the best offenses we've seen projected right now that Cincinnati has put forth. And I'm really, really excited about it. I think that you answered all your holes, obviously, on the roster. You're hopeful that Chase Brown and Zach Moss can form a very dynamic duo when we do lean on the running game. But I think that style of running back is sort of what we're leaning on a little bit more, the kind of smaller, quick twitch running back that offers upside in the pass catching as well. Of course, you guys know there were some guys at running back spot that I liked. And, but all in all, I think that the mold of running backs the Bengals currently have are guys that you feel very comfortable with as it currently stands. I love the receiving core. Right down to right. I mean, it's going to be amazing, man. I mean, you look at it, obviously Jamar Chase is who he is, that it doesn't need to be explained. T. Higgins is still back in the fold, but whether it's a holdout, whether T's nicked up a couple times this year and he can't play every single game, you get a guy like Jermaine Burton, who's a dog. I see Jermaine Burton having potential wide receiver 2 upside for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he offers something completely different from T. Higgins. He offers the ability to take the top off the defense while also still possessing the ability to have those 50-50 jump balls. I love what someone said. They said, when you turn on the tape and you watch Jermaine Burton, he takes 50-50 balls and turns them into 70-30 balls. And that's what you're hoping for with a guy like that. You still are hopeful for guys like Charlie Jones, Yoshi Voss, but you allow them to continue to grow. Yoshi Voss also was a later pick. There's no pressure on him to step into a role he's not ready for just quite yet, but maybe he will take the next step. That is the hope, though. Competition breeds success, and that's the hope with Charlie Jones. You hope to see you get something more out of Charlie Jones, and he's able to help in the slot. But I think if everything pans out the way it does, let's say T. Higgins does leave next year, for instance, you have your number 2 wide receiver potentially, and a guy like Jermaine Burton, if he plays the way I expect him to play, the way he took on the role at Alabama, and then you're hopeful that those back end guys, those other guys that you have on the team right now, can step up and they can vie for that spot, vie for that position. You still have a guy like Trent Irwin, but more importantly, you look at the tight end spot. Mike Gesicki is going to be an absolute dog, right? And I think that allows the Bengals to kind of change their game plan as the season goes on, depending on the type of matchup, whether it be a team that is really good against tight ends, which is not necessarily a lot of teams, or a team that just has an answer for your receiving core. For instance, they're making life a little bit harder on Joe Burrow. Well, now you have a guy like Mike Gesicki, who you have to really, really pay attention to, who's a true receiving threat. There's no qualms about that. He's a true receiving threat and a guy that could really hurt you if you're not responsible and you're not responsibly defending that guy. So I think when you look at it, man, I think that this offense could be really, really special. You answer the questions at the left tackle spot. Cordell Volson was one of the better guards in football from week 11 on. So I think that the people that are angry about him was a little bit overplayed. He was never going to get replaced this year necessarily, but I do think you could add depth in case of an injury. Ted Karras was okay. He was fine, whatever. You got Alex Kappa, who was fine as well. And you got the right tackle spot situated. And now you have your backup kind of sorted out as well. These guys got to come and play, though, right? These guys got to come and play, and these guys got to live up to the expectation. But I'm expecting big things. They rave about Dan Pitcher and his ability. Obviously, Zach Taylor will be calling the plays, but I just wonder would anything look a little different. And if it is, then I think the Bengals might be cooking with grease. Sorry to go long-winded to answer your question, Percy, but I appreciate you, man.
No, of course. A question from J-Man1 Cincinnati, I believe. A.D. Mitchell or Jermaine Burton. This is where in the draft you're going to have guys are all going to be great. A.D. Mitchell would give you a better athlete, but Jermaine Burton, I think, will end up being the more productive college or NFL wide receiver. A.D. Mitchell, you're betting a lot on potential. Like he was somewhat productive, but there was a lot of flaws in his game. I mean, you saw with Texas, Quinn Ewers, he wasn't a polished wide receiver. He had big time plays, his ability to go up and high point the ball, had some big time catches over Kool-Aid McKinstry and the Alabama corners. I like A.D. Mitchell. I am not even worried that Jermaine Burton is on the team. So A.D. Mitchell, I hope he does well with the Indianapolis Colts. Blake Flint said, Malik and Daniel, thoughts on the rest of the division's draft? I thought the division drafted well, and I think the division always drafts well. The Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, were big-time winners. They dominated the interior offensive line. You got Zach Frazier. They got Troy Fautanu. They got Roman Wilson. I thought they had an excellent draft. I think the Browns had an okay draft. I got to go see who else they drafted. They didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't have a lot of picks. I think Michael Hall was a very good pick for their defensive line. And then the Ravens, adding the corners is scary. It's scary. Nate Wiggins he's an unpolished corner right now, but he doesn't have to step in day one and be a star. So Nate Wiggins, and I'll look through the rest of their guys. Anything that stood out to you, Steelers-wise?
No, I mean, Steelers had a fine draft. Steelers had a good draft. Ravens always draft well. Ravens didn't draft as well as I thought that they would necessarily because there were some other players on the board that I thought that they could have grabbed at some tremendous value, but they still had a good draft. Obviously, just I don't think anything really like stood out to you where you're like, oh my god, they completely just changed the game like we felt a couple years. I will tell you this: there's one guy I'm looking at on the Bengals roster, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Brad Robbins, Brad Robbins, man. Yeah. I hope that you are ready. I hope you're ready, man, because the guy the Bengals just signed as an undrafted free agent, Austin McNamara, was not just a camp body. That's a guy that could take your job and take everything you worked for. That fifth round, that premium pick the Bengals spent on, was it a fifth round pick or sixth round pick? I forgot last year. Whatever it was, doesn't mean anything. It does not mean anything if it does not mean anything if you ain't ready. I promise you, because that guy is a true game changer. Right? There's a couple guys that I'm looking at on the roster right now for the Bengals. Yeah, and you're like, you got to ready. You got to get ready to fight because I think that Austin McNamara, and this is a guy we talked about, Daniel. Yeah, I know when I told you, hey, the Bengals signed a punter, you probably thought I was talking about Ryan Reckoff. That's probably who you thought I was. My boy. But no, man, Austin McNamara is. I think he's truly like one of the best college punters of all time. And I think that he brings something different from Brad Robbins. I think the reason why you drafted Brad Robbins is the one thing Brad Robbins does is he takes away the ability for returns, right? From the hang time, if you will. Keeps the ball in the air, allows the gunners to get back there and stop a potential return, if you will. I think that Austin McNamara has the ability to just flip the field position. And I think that could have been the difference in the Bengals winning the AFC Championship game. So, yeah, when you look at it, man, I mean that when I say that. Austin McNamara, you got to make sure you're ready to go, man. I mean, Brad Robbins, you got to make sure you're ready to go because Austin McNamara is coming, man. Yeah. And I think he can win the job. I really do. I'm excited for it, man. Yeah, I'm excited for it. So we got a couple more, obviously a lot more questions. Our guy, Jeff H., I'm going to try to find his question again. He was talking about the running backs, right? He said Jalen Wright, Estime, Tracy, and Guerrero. Silly to nab backup tight ends when starting running backs were there. Let me just say this about the running backs. There were good running backs on the board, right? We talked about Will Shipley. I like Audric Estime.
when I look at all these guys, I think they all have their flaws. And I think it all depends on the specific team that they're going to. I don't think a Jalen Wright would have had, I think he would have been an explosive runner. I think Chase Brown can give you what Jalen Wright gives you. Isaac Garindo is a guy where he wasn't super productive at college. I don't think Isaac Garindo would have been a great fit for the Bengals because he's a downhill zone runner where you just got to get your offensive line moving. And he fits way better in the 49er system than he does the Bengals. You look at Audric Estime. He's not a very shifty guy. He's a downhill runner, but he wasn't a dominant goal line running back. He was a productive running back, but many times he got stopped behind the line of scrimmage. So looking at the running backs, I definitely think that it hurts that they didn't grab one of these guys. But at the end of the day, at every one of these picks, especially with 5, 6, and 7, I don't think there was a true value at running back. The only running back I could say is a Trey Benson. I believe he got took before the Bengals even third-round pick. But he's a guy where I think he steps in day one and is your best running back on the field. We talked about Will Shipley. He got picked before the Bengals, fourth or fifth-round pick. So a lot of times that these guys just weren't there when the Bengals. So looking at the running back, I'm okay with the running back room. Chase Brown and Zach Moss, I think, are fine. So any thoughts on the running back room real quick?
I kind of touched on it already. I don't really have anything extra to add kind of there. Yeah. I just think that you're just hopeful that guys like Chase Brown, Zach Moss already take the next step. Clearly the running back spot wasn't necessarily a position of need, or not necessarily a position of need, but a position of focus for the Bengals. Yeah. And they're kind of comfortable where they are. And they still have obviously the undrafted free agents and the ability to do things there. But all in all, I think the Bengals probably feel pretty comfortable. And they're probably thinking about it as, why throw it? Why run it when we could throw it on you in the red zone? Yep. We got the bodies now. I'll tell you this, guys, and I kind of said this before, but I'll say it again. I think that whatever prop comes out with Joe Burrow to lead the league in touchdown passes, that's what I would take. Mm-hmm. I think Joe Burrow is going to lead the league in touchdown passes this year. And I think that Joe Burrow is going to put together before, not that it even matters, but I could see him throwing upwards to 40 touchdown passes this year. Is that a hot take, Marissa, you think? I don't think that's a hot take, right? I could see Joe Burrow throwing like 40 some odd touchdown passes this year. That would be the most in franchise. I think he already has the most touchdown passes in franchise history, right? I believe that. I think he already beat that record. But I think that he's going to break his own record this year and probably have throw the most touchdown passes this year. Obviously, pending health. Obviously, you want to see that guy stay healthy. But I just have a hard time seeing anyone being able to stop this offense for what it is. And I really think the Bengals are going to do something really, really special on the offensive side of the ball.
I agree. Michael said we had 10 picks, but didn't trade up when a lot of teams did. The 6th edge and 5th safety won't make the cut for our team. How do y'all feel about this? I think there's always room to trade up. I was a huge fan, definitely. Before every single mock draft that we did, we traded up. But at the end of the day, guys, like you look at the prospects that were picked within 5 to 10 picks of the Bengals. They were all very similar. The Bengals had their chance to get most of these guys. I don't think there were many that got picked right before the Bengals. I mean, we saw the interior offensive line class fell. A lot of these guys were available in round 4, in round 5, in round 6. So do I think that I always think it's a smart move, especially I'm with you. I don't think all 10 of these guys will make the roster. But with the way that the board fell, I was okay with it. And I'm also a huge fan personally. A lot of times, hey, like I love what the Eagles did. They acquired an extra 3rd-round pick, an extra 4th, and an extra 5th-round pick. I'm of the belief too, hey, maybe just trade out of this. Like, hey, maybe that extra 5th-round pick or that extra 6th-round pick, just trade it away for next year's 2025 pick. So I think there's always room to trade up or trade down. I was okay with them not doing it, to be honest, though. Look at some of these other questions. Jeff H. said, Braylon Allen, we don't have a true fourth and one banger. Braylon Allen is also not a true 4th and one banger. Braylon Allen is a young prospect who was a very productive college running back, but he wasn't a true bruiser. So I'm okay with the Bengals running back room. I think Zach Moss, that's something people don't have, a full understanding of. Zach Moss was a goal line running back for the Colts. He was a very good bruiser. He is not the biggest running back. He's 5'9", but that was him coming out of college, was his contact balance. And go look at his stats last year. When Jonathan Taylor was not on the field, who was the guy that was getting the touches? Without Anthony Richardson, it was Zach Moss. So I'm confident in Zach Moss. looking at some more of these questions, James Wright said, will Chase Brown and the offensive line get some reps in preseason? I'm not quite sure if the Bengals are going to change their philosophy.
I don't think necessarily it's even a philosophy, dude. I think it's a
Really?
lot of it's Joe Burrow's not healthy, and he's continuously said he hopes that he can finally get some preseason reps. So I could see it happening this year.
You think the starters will potentially?
I think you could see that change of philosophy. Yeah, I don't think it's anything too crazy, but I could foresee them trying to, make sure that everything's gelling together.
Yeah. Once again, guys, drop your comments down below. Drop your questions if you guys have any questions, whether it's the draft, whoever you guys want to talk about. Jesse James asked, why would we draft 3 tight ends? Bengals drafted 2 tight ends, I believe. So
Yeah.
it's best player available. And it's not like you loaded up and went crazy at one specific position. I think this was one of the drafts where it actually fell to where they addressed almost every single position. This isn't normal. This isn't normal for most drafts. You either load up at one position, you overload. They address tight end, they address wide receiver, they address tackle, they address interior offensive line, they address defensive tackle, they took one edge rusher, they addressed the cornerback. They pretty much hit every single position. So this is the one of the drafts, Malik, where I'm pretty confident saying, hey, that I'm not concerned that they didn't address a single position.
Yeah.
Some more of these questions. Jeff H said, I hope they learned how to have a better running game and playing different strategy with Browning playing. That is a conversation, right? I mean, they definitely figured it out near the end of the season. You just hope that, hey, you got a full off season. There's no reason why that they can't figure out this running game. I'm a huge believer in Chase Brown this year. I think Chase Brown will be one of the most productive running backs in the NFL. I think he could potentially flash. Showed in the run game, showed in the pass game, extremely explosive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what makes you feel that confident?
Yeah, when I saw Chase Brown, and this isn't once again a knock on Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had a ton of run early in the year. He had a ton of wear and tear on him because he was the only real running back. Chase Brown was extremely explosive. I saw him in the Jaguars game. I saw him wherever he was put in, anytime he touched the ball, especially, I mean, you look at the end of the season, those last 3 to 4 games, and he topped it off at the end of the year with that game against the Browns, albeit against backups. Chase Brown showed me anytime he touched the ball, he was explosive. He needs to get better. In the pass blocking that was something where I did see a little bit of inconsistencies with him. But hey, I look at the weapons you have on offense. If a running back isn't producing in this offense, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to point the finger at, obviously you can look at scheme, but it might be the running back, because the 49ers, you never question the talent of the running backs. The Miami Dolphins, you never question the talent of the running backs. The Cincinnati Bengals should be the exact same thing, with the talent at wide receiver, with the talent at tight end. So I'm excited to see Chase Brown. Like I said, he was extremely explosive last year. Anytime he touched the ball, especially, obviously in the pass game and the screen game, had a couple big screens. So yeah, I'm excited to see Chase Brown. Jay McCain said, do you think Ja'Tavion Sanders would have been a better pick at tight end? I don't think so. And once again, I think could be the better prospect. He was picked with the first pick at round 4. Ja'Tavion Sanders is by far and away more raw than Eric All and Tanner McLachlan. His tape was not as good. It was flashy. He had big time plays. He definitely had more explosive plays than him. But that's not what you're necessarily looking for in the Bengals offense. So I think those 2 tight ends step in day one and are better tight ends than Ja'Tavion Sanders. And I think they fit the mold of the Bengals better. I think both tight ends are way taller than Ja'Tavion Sanders. He is more of a project, and I think they fit the Bengals scheme better than Ja'Tavion Sanders. And I'm confident. I think they have better hands than Ja'Tavion Sanders. He is just more of a explosive after the catch guy. He is a faster tight end than those guys are, but I'm confident the 2 tight ends that the Bengals took.
Yeah, guys, we're gonna answer probably like one more question.
Yeah.
We're gonna head out of here. We're gonna obviously be live again for State of the Jungle, and we appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys do us a favor, we get how many people on the live right now? We got about almost 500 people. If you guys can do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Remember, this is simulcasted on the Sit Down Malik Wright's YouTube channel, as well as the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate you.
So the final question, we'll got to go with our guy, Michael Rolfe. He said, Malik and Daniel, would you mind doing a stat prediction for Jermaine Burton projection in year 1? Man, I think I think he could be. I'm not going to touch 1,000 because I think there's too many mouths to feed. Personally,
Yeah, I think you have like about 500 yards, maybe.
I think especially let me look at what like Tyler Boyd was doing, but I think he could be hovering around that 500, 600 yards. Tyler Boyd was 600, 700, 700. I think realistic one is to look at 550 with 3 tutties. 550 with 3 tutties. That's what I'll
I
say.
think that's fair. Blake Flynn said 550 with 5 touchdowns.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I could see something similar to that. I think he's going to I think he's going to shock a lot of people. But guys, we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. Appreciate you guys being live and following all of our draft coverage as well. You guys know we'll be live, of course, this upcoming Wednesday from the new First Star Logistics studio. Same time as always, same crew, as we will go further into the Bengals draft and how we see the upcoming season play out. Hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, being friends of the show.